coming up on the Body Wisdom Podcast. We have to look to the future and these future generations and to try to hold the line on the things that we haven't had taken and try to gain our footing back in spaces where they've taken our rights from us. And we need to be able to have the right to choose bio-individually, what's my best approach to wellness? The practitioners need to be fighting. The consumer side needs to be fighting. We definitely need to rally behind all of these organizations. Welcome to the Body Wisdom Podcast, formerly known as the Nutritional Therapy and Wellness Podcast. We're still the official podcast of the Nutritional Therapy Association, still on the same mission, just a fun new name, beautiful new branding, this amazing new podcast studio for season 2. At the Nutritional Therapy Association, we believe that our health is within our control, and we want to equip you to grab the reins and thrive. We're each bio-individuals, which means there's no one-size-fits-all approach to wellness. But we do know this: everyone gets healthier when they focus on what actually makes us healthier. Nutrient-dense diet, proper digestion, balanced blood sugar, quality sleep, stress management, and all of the subcategories of each of those that we collectively call the foundations of wellness. This podcast is a megaphone to call in recruits who want to join us as we spread truth, revitalize hope, and heal for generations to come. I'm Jamie Bells. Welcome to the Body Wisdom Podcast.
You've tried everything: detoxes, supplements, and complicated protocols, and you're still sick, frustrated, and without real answers. That's because symptoms aren't the root cause. The Root Cause Health Assessment uses nutritional therapy to uncover the hidden imbalances that are driving your symptoms, with a bio-individual back-to-basics approach that actually makes sense. Complete the assessment, meet one-on-one with a nutritional therapy practitioner, and walk away with a clear, personalized roadmap forward for just $25. No guesswork, no overwhelm, just answers. Start your Root Cause Health Assessment today.
I've known you for exactly 1 year. I met you at last year's NHF conference, and here we are a full year. We're looking forward to another National Health Federation conference on the horizon. We'll talk about that down the road. But first, thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate your time. I know you've got a hard exit here. You're flying out, and so we'll keep it short and sweet on this one. But welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate it.
Now, Kat, you are one of the original nutritional therapy practitioners. Talk about that.
Back in 2004, my husband and I went to the NTA education, and he was the first optometrist to get licensed or, certified. And it's just benefited us all these years. I can't begin to tell you what a good move it was. From his perspective, having had 8 years to become an eye doctor, he at one point said this was the most valuable education that he got, which says a lot. We use it every day in our practice at Medical Vision Center for optometry, and there's a huge void for NTPs entering the OD field or ophthalmology field. Ophthalmology might be harder because it's more standard of care. Optometrists are a little more on the cutting edge as far as maybe having a dispensary, which we have at the office. So between all of that and the wholesale aspect all these years, it was one of the best decisions that we have ever made. And that was back in 2004 when Greg Graham was teaching.
I went through the program 12 years later. And so it was still all of Gray's original. When I went through the course, it was still Gray's original recordings and things. And so I think it's such a cool privilege that you were able to do that. If you're listening right now, Gray Graham is the founder of the Nutritional Therapy Association, opened it up in 1997. And so, Kat, you were there shortly after its origin and listening to him lecture in person. And that's so cool. And to touch back on the optometry side of it, nutritional therapy, I tell people all the time, I was at A4M several years ago. And so this massive functional medicine conference, I'm walking around this huge trade show floor, and all of the things that I'm seeing, it occurred to me that every single thing they were selling, every gizmo, gadget, lotion, potion, every supplement, every wellness modality that they had to offer, all of it works better, more efficiently, and more effectively if the body is nutrient sufficient. And so when we look at each of these unique areas, like you talk about optometry, and it's something that a lot of nutritional therapy practitioners probably wouldn't have thought of, like, yes, I should become a nutritional therapy practitioner to specialize in optometry and partnering with an optometrist in their practice. But that is something, I'm so glad you brought it up, because we need NTPs. We need this nutritional training in all areas, and everyone will do better if we learn how to properly fuel and repair our bodies through the foods that we eat. And then, of course, the foundations of health that come along with that. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about you and Gray. Your families have all been close over the years in understanding the relationship, the necessary support system, symbiotically so, that needs to happen in order for NTPs to be able to practice, and then kind of use this as a bridge to talk a little bit more into NHF and what the National Health Federation is and your involvement there, if you would, Kat.
Well, back in 2011, my husband was involved in a in-office trial. It was the very first one for resveratrol and macular degeneration. And for those of you who don't know, macular degeneration, it's a potentially blinding disease. And instead of, as in glaucoma, where you're losing the peripheral, with MACD, you're losing the central vision. So I would look at you, Jamie, and I would see your hair and not your face. It's a devastating disease, and it's preventable with diet and proper assimilation, all of those gut functions, ox bile. I wrote a paper on this, and it went around the world. CRG had it blasted out to his group, and that was years ago, about how to solve macular degeneration naturally. And actually, the researcher who came to the house, along with Scott Tipps and Bill Sardi, the formulator of the resveratrol product, that researcher was Dr. Stuart Richer. He's dead now, as is Bill, unfortunately. Stuart was a VA doctor, and he was specializing in the relationship between heart issues and ocular issues. Absolutely fascinating stuff. And so I was able to show him that unless you can break down that lutein particle with ox bile or sunflower lecithin so that it can ride up on the HDL particle to get to the macula, then you're just wasting your money, because so many of these people, they don't have proper digestion. And so I can't say enough about the NTP program, because Stuart actually, as this famous research doctor, put this in his slides. He asked me permission, can I put this piece in my slides? And we sell ox bile at our dispensary. That totally came from the NTP education. And so anyway, that's where I met Scott, and Scott handed me this magazine. I was it was my first year opening the bed and breakfast, and I was just like overwhelmed, and back in the day, we were actually making breakfast for people. That ended really quickly. And we turned it into lock-offs where they had self-service. But Scott handed me a couple of magazines, and I was thinking in my mind, do I honestly look like I have time to read this, And I did, and I still remember it had a scarecrow on the front of the issue. If you're a member of NHF, you can, or even a non-member, you can access those back issues on www.thenhf.com. And so you can go see this great article that Scott wrote. And Scott was here. Scott is the president of the National Health Federation, just for those of you who don't know. We're the oldest health freedom organization in the whole world, and we regulate food and nutritional supplement code, which, ties in directly to the NTP program. But anyway, Scott wrote an article on something called ractopamine, and that turned me into an overnight activist. I was not even aware of NHF, which kind of humbled me, because he's been fighting for our right to use supplements at therapeutic values and have safe food free of additives and pesticides and contaminants, even championing the bees, honestly. But anyway, I read the article, and it was about a veterinary drug. It's a steroid-like. It's not a steroid, but it acts like a steroid. And they're using it in food production on animals, like turkey and beef and pork. And so that additive is not labeled. So if you go to the market and you look at a package and it says no hormones, no antibiotics, it doesn't mean that this is not in that. And so it's cumulative, 20% cumulative action in the body, producing symptoms like panic attack and heart attack because it creates vessel constriction. And so we know so many people are having panic and anxiety nowadays. And this is the type of steroid-like drug that shouldn't be in the food supply at all. They don't withdraw it prior to slaughter like they do other drugs. You can have it in the animal system and slaughter that day. So what turned me into this overnight activist was two things. Scott had this little footnote in his article about downer pigs. And my uncle had raised pigs, and we had raised pigs when I was not a vegetarian. And they're like the happiest little critter on the farm. And to think that they were vomiting and shaking and convulsing, because of this drug, so that the farmer could have a little bit more lean mass on the animal. That's what the drug promotes. It just was so angering to me. But secondly, it was the fact that it accumulates. And so if you have bacon at breakfast, a turkey sandwich at lunch, beef stew at dinner, which if you're a meat eater, that's not unusual, then you're getting 3 doses of this a day. And I was just thinking about my back then I had a 2-year-old granddaughter, and I was thinking, wow, loading all this stuff into her. And if she were like an Olympic athlete, she would actually get disqualified for doping. So I came out, I was actually in the sauna reading this article of Scott's, and I came out and just said, sign me up. And so that's how I got involved with the National Health Federation as a nutritional therapy practitioner.
Thank you for all of that. I just found out about it last year. And this is one of those things I said, absolutely sign me up. I need to be involved in this because we don't even know about these things, Kat. And that's the saddest part is that, one, as nutritional therapy practitioners, we need to dive in with everything that we have to learn about the foundations of wellness and the things that truly promote optimal health. And at the same time, we need to make sure that we're also keeping a pulse on what's going on in the background and understanding the fight that there is to fight to keep these toxic substances out of our food. And NHF has been around since 1955 fighting this fight. Would you be willing to go back and talk really quick on the origin story of NHF?
It's really a love story. I mean, it honestly gives me chills. The founder, his name is Fred Hart, and Fred's wife, Eva, got breast cancer. And Fred had been doing some animal model experiments with cancer with something like a Rife machine. I'm not sure if it was a Rife machine, but it was definitely a frequency machine. And so anyway, Eva started experiencing a positive result from this therapy, and the AMA came in and knocked it right out of his hands and, took away the ability to practice with it, even though the animal models proved success in the cancer department. So, Eva ended up dying. How would you feel if you knew you had this thing that worked and then this governing body just comes in and takes it because it worked? I would be livid and bitter and angry and revengeful, probably. Well, Fred took it to a little higher level, and he just probably was thinking, okay, well, I'll just get even then. And I'm going to open up the biggest health freedom organization that has ever existed. And it was the very first one. And it was just super powerful. I mean, back then, I've got the history of the NHF that I'm immersing in. Back then, you could get in trouble for sending a health food book in the mail. I mean, they could take away your ability to use the mail. Like, really? Back then, they were busting chiropractors right during the adjustment. They would just go handcuff them and take them off. NHF was the first organization out there who actually was able to get chiropractors the ability to practice the regulatory environment. So when I found all of this stuff out, I have to say, Jamie, I was like humbled to the core. And to find out that Scott had been literally going to these meetings that are global meetings with Codex. Codex means food code in Latin. And they regulate about, I believe it's 27 committees around the planet. And most of the world has a seat at Codex. Well, Scott was able to get us the only seat as a health freedom organization. And it was like, by the grace of God, it just kind of got slipped in there. And then I think they have deeply regretted it ever since. So anyway, Scott champions as our head of delegation, and I go as a researcher and writer to these meetings. And as a head of delegation, he has championed for food safety, the ability to use supplements with proper therapeutic values, or to use them at all in your country. There's some countries that you can't even use these supplements in that we take for granted. I think Denmark, and melatonin is one of those. I take melatonin every night. In Denmark, I think that it's contraband. I might be wrong on that, or that might have changed, but that's how it was years ago.
You brought up Codex, Kat. Codex is, very simplistically, how I describe it, is basically the FDA of the world. But would you give the more precise version of that?
Well, it's the FAO and the WHO marriage sanctified by the United Nations. So you have all of the heads of these organizations. You have all of the countries with their delegations that they bring. Even little tiny Togo or China or whatever. And then you have INGOs, independent non-governmental agencies like us. But we are in there with like the sugar group. You know, it's not, it really represents to me the political aim of each country for getting barriers opened up with free trade so that you can trade across borders. And it's also about profit. We have gone head to head with Merck and Monsanto, and it's ugly. It is a scary, ugly world where there are not reporters. You know, it's just all of this important global setting standards and guidelines done behind closed doors, and it's not like CNN even or Fox News. No one is there. So reporting. And so Scott and I have been instrumental in getting the word out. And Scott is a lawyer licensed in California as well as an editor. The combination is dreadful to Codex because he's literally like reporting exactly what happened. And that's why you can go back and read. He authored 2 books and has some compilations from others. I'm in the second book. But you can go read.
Right there.
Yeah.
They're good to keep on hand. Yes, valuable information to report out what's going on in these meetings. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so when I started realizing, like my first Codex meeting was in 2012 in Ottawa, Canada. And honestly, They go line by line. I told Scott, I'm like, Elvoy, this is my version of hell. This cannot possibly get any worse. And I was just so bored. And I think that's the design, because if you're not awake and they serve all these sugary, horrible snacks at, at the break, so then you're like brain dead if you eat that. But anyway, the key point comes when they try and sneak in something. And in my incredible state of boredom, all of a sudden I just lit up because I heard them say that they were going to label MSG as salt. And I thought, what? Really? And so that kind of piqued my interest in attending more of these meetings. And at this point, I got the 2014 NHF Health Freedom Hero Award for my participation in more Codex meetings than any other woman in health freedom history. And I'm proud to say that. And it's life-changing for people. They don't realize how important it is. We got done with one meeting, I think in Beijing one year. We got back into the United States and walked past a restaurant that had a lot of bread stuff in it. And I said to Scott, those people don't realize that we just got 75% of aluminum out of what they're eating, all those bread products. So it's just like Scott's really an unsung hero. You know, he really is.
I know that when he explained his experience with Codex as coming in as a representative prior to NHF having a seat at the table, but he was a delegate that would come in, and the representatives from the United States were all from the FDA, and Scott would write things, life-saving things like, no, don't let him put that toxic thing, or stop this, or whatever he would write that is in the best interest of humanity. And he'd write it on a piece of paper and pass it down to the FDA personnel, and they'd look at it, crumple it up, and throw it in the trash. And they never had much interest in hearing what he had to say. And that's thus the fight for the seat at Codex. And so excited that NHF is a speaking voice to be able to, you know, have that seat, have a microphone to say things, you know, on behalf of us.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that you guys are doing this, and it's all over the globe. It's all over. I mean, you spent so much time doing this, and the travels and the funding behind your efforts is coming from all different directions. I know you've been sponsored, if you will, by Gray Graham in the past.
And some other nutritional vendors. As a nutritional therapist like you, I have all of my vendors from different vitamin companies. And it really behooves these companies to have representation. Scott can speak on the details about how they're trying to dumb these supplements down, you know, and he, because of his legal brain and his editor brain, he can get into the minutia of it and remember it. I can't remember. The big goal of the whole thing with Codex seems to be their stated goal is food safety, which I think is a joke. And they're dumbing down the supplements to the point where we went to Germany in a health food store, and the health food store didn't really have any supplements hardly. It was all body products, and literally one 3-foot shelf with some vitamin D in, I think it was 200 IUs. And I was like, you would have to buy like 20 of these, 20 bottles. Well, I think that's the goal, That's the goal. It's just a persistent chipping away and undermining at these therapeutic values. And I have never understood why every vitamin company isn't clamoring to get representation by the NHF at Codex, because we actually protect their interests. And, with the nutritional therapist, when I was going through the program, I didn't know about that we might not even really have the tools to practice properly because of this global design behind the dumbing down of these supplements. And as after I met Scott, I went back to Graham and spoke with him about, the NTA needs education about how to protect their ability to even practice. Because if you get things dumbed down, people are not going to buy multiple bottles of something that used to have a higher level in it that was therapeutic, and now it's worthless. You can't afford to buy 20 bottles of this to equal what you used to have. So if I just read a quote, if a man has a home, he needs to fight for it. And NHF is my home. The NTA is my home. This is who I am. And we need to fight for the ability to continue to practice and heal with supplements with therapeutic values, or even to get them. A lot of supplements are on the chopping block where they figure out they're super powerful. So, now suddenly they're going to be a drug,
And it's all about the control. If they can schedule it and the pharmaceutical companies can control it, it's more. And that's what we're talking about. If you're listening right now and not quite sure what all that means. So we have the amount of certain isolate nutrients that can be in these products that we can still buy over the counter without a prescription, or buy directly from, the pharmaceutical grade. Amazon changed all of that. So, but I know, like Biotics, you used to have to go through a practitioner, and now it's available on Amazon. Biotics Research, they put up a major fight years ago to keep it so that CoQ10 wasn't scheduled. And like you're saying, Kat, why are these companies not just showing up at all of these codex meetings, these committee meetings, to fight the fight, to say, we want to retain our right to be able to choose. And that's what this health freedom is all about. And the NHF being the longest standing organization, I'm so excited about the MAHA movement, in the sense of all of us need to be rallying behind that. We have to look to the future and these future generations, and to try to hold the line on the things that we haven't had taken, and try to gain our footing back in spaces where they've taken our rights from us. And we need to be able to have the right to choose bio-individually, what's my best approach to wellness. The practitioners need to be fighting. The consumer side needs to be fighting. We definitely need to rally behind all of these organizations. It's fun to see a lot of new people coming out. You always have to raise an eyebrow, because it's like you didn't care until all of a sudden people are right here and now there's money to be made. So I'm going to be a little skeptical of newcomers, but at the same time, rah. If we can all, join hands and charge that hill together, it's a necessary fight for generations to come, and truly in saving the world. If we're going to save the world, it's going to take all of us, Kat.
That's right. We will be in the MAHA movie that's released in the autumn. And so Jeff Hayes came out to the Dallas conference last year. I've invited him this year if he wants to go for round 2. This NHF is sort of specializing in the cell tower and wireless issues right now. Charles Froman, our lobbyist, has written quite a bit on the wireless gulag, the exposures outside children's classrooms and whatnot. So I think it would make a great movie. We've had this on our own street, where Verizon could have selected any hill around us, but we're fighting right now, Verizon, from putting their cell tower on our residential property, of which I have a 16-acre food forest, organic. So you know what that does to the bees with the disorientation. And so if you want to catch the MAHA movie in the autumn, then you'll see most of the big names in health freedom addressing some of these issues.
Let's talk about the National Health Federation Conference that's coming up.
It's our 71st anniversary, which is really hard to believe. I mean, it's going to be in Dallas, and it's April 23 through 25. And you can buy tickets online at conference. Is it conference.nhf? I think so.
I'll put the link in the description, so that way people don't need to grab a pen right now. There'll be a link. If you just click the description of this episode and scroll down, we'll make sure that that my team gets that link in there.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that I think is really amazing, Jamie, is the fact that NHF has actually lasted all these years, because you look at all these big names, like when I was a kid, Montgomery Ward and Eastern Kodak, and things like that. And they're all gone, they're just gone. So I think it's amazing. And I feel like God's hand of blessing is on this organization. So I'm really amazed that we have lasted 71 years. And I'm honored to be a part of it, especially the Codex part of it. And when you think about the fact that we literally get to change the health of 8 billion people on the planet by the work that we do, the research and education, and the time that we put in to going to these meetings. There was a meeting in China. I've been twice to China and once to Hong Kong. I mean, these are like 17-hour flights, and I fly economy. In fact, I woke up with my head on the shoulder of somebody with a turban. Sorry, guy, I didn't mean to, but 17 hours, we don't have any government funding. We don't have anything to do with the government. It's all by donation and interested parties who care to use the leverage that we have. If you have someone with this much staying power. In fact, we were approached by one of the leading natural medical schools years ago because they were looking for the oldest nonprofits that had to do with health. We were approached in a collaboration type of thing. So I would encourage all of you to go ahead and take the leap to educate yourself about the global aspect of your business, because you are going to need to fight for your business, and you can do it through the leverage of NHF. Scott is a veteran. The Codex people are appointed by their governments, and they come and go. Scott's been there. He's been on the board since '89 and at Codex since 2000 something. He has an incredible amount of respect from the whole world. When they listen to him speak, it hits home. And they often say that he has said what they can't say because they're told by their government to take this position, or whatever. So what I'm trying to say is the NTA has a lot of power available to leverage that you're not aware of. And if we get the chance in the future to do some conference things with you where we can educate or do some continuing ed type things, we've all been in the same boat. I was so humbled to learn that someone had been speaking on my behalf for my family, and I hadn't given them a dime. I didn't know who they were. I never said thank you. All of that changes when you get your eyes open to the protection of this organization. To me, it's like insurance. It's like an umbrella of protection over us. And so we would appreciate your support financially. You can make a donation on thenhf.com, and you can also sign up just for the lowest level of membership is $25, and you do the digital. A lot of people don't want a physical magazine. We do put out a gorgeous magazine. Barnes & Noble called it the most unique magazine they'd ever seen. It's extremely high quality, extremely high content. And so you get instant access through the member portal for the last 2 years of the magazine, which is a quarterly magazine only for the members. It's not out there in the general public.
So I will put the link for that too, because I want to reiterate this very important fact here. What you said, Kat, there's an organization out there fighting for you, for your family, for your future generations to come. They're fighting for all of these things. They're dedicating time and energy and their skill sets to go and do this. And, those of us who lack the time, lack the knowledge, lack the whatever it is to be able to go and do that, that's not our life. We need to rally behind those who are doing this and so generously gifting their skills and time to be able to do it. And so to $25 for an annual membership is just such a low rate. I think we should increase that, Kat.
Well, it is $45. But it's $45 if you want the magazine. And frankly, the magazines are so superior. I've been working on the magazine since 2012, and It's an amazing magazine. And so I would encourage you to join at the $45 level, because you're going to want to refer back to these articles and stuff. In fact, we have called so many things before they even happened, before they were even out there, like the COVID thing, the scam that it was, and the ivermectin situation. We have one issue where there's a dog on the front cover, and it talks about the Panacure curing cancer, the guy's pancreatic stage 4, This was like in, I can't even remember, maybe like 2018 or something, before William Makis got out there and started promoting, ivermectin and things like this for cancer therapies. So anyway, it's the cutting edge. And our Board of Governors right now, if you are going to regret it if you don't go to this conference. Dr. Thomas Levy is called the godfather of vitamin C. He's brilliant. There's other brilliant speakers, Judy Mikovits, Catherine Austin Fitz on the financial issues going on and really what's going on in the background. Scott will speak. So many of our board, you're going to be a speaker. So we look forward to hearing from you too.
Yes. So that is April 23rd through the 25th. It's coming up quickly. It's not too late, and the TSA thing is all done. So you have no fear in booking those flights at this point. So join us in Dallas, April 23rd through the 25th. Become an NHF member. Get that magazine. Get informed. Get involved. And we need everyone, like I said, everybody needs to get involved and rally behind these health freedom organizations, because we need to be healthy in order to be truly free. I just spoke at America Fest last December, speaking on exactly that. If we are shackled, tethered to our dis-ease, right, those states of unhealth or chronic disease and dysfunction that we have in this country, if we are so distracted by those things, how on earth are we supposed to joyfully live out our lives and our grand purpose here on earth? And so I can't express enough the importance to lean in to supporting health freedom organizations such as the National Health Federation. Be informed about organizations such as Codex and the people who are fighting the fight on our behalf at those committee meetings. Thank you, Kat, and thank you for being here today, for joining us on the Body Wisdom Podcast. I will see you again next week.